Hello, everyone. Hello, football fans. Where we are halfway through the year of the AAF, the Alliance of American Football. And let's talk about this week's highlights and games. Let's go start with the first one. Orlando at Birmingham, the week's most anticipated game, turned out to be the league's most overhyped game. I thought the Orlando offense would be too much for Birmingham to handle, and it was. Garrett Gilbert goes 5 for 5 in the first drive for like 60 yards, and Orlando pretty much dominated this game from start to finish. Garrett Gilbert goes 23 of 35, 286 yards, 65% completion percentage, 2 more touchdown passes. Still has not thrown a pick this year, if I remember right. Charles Johnson, the leading receiver, 6 catches, 83 yards. Ernest Johnson out of the backfield for 73 yards receiving. Renell Hall, 23 yards. Jalen Marshall, 22 yards. And the Orlando rushing game again got almost 200 yards rushing, led by De'Veon Smith with 119 and Ernest Johnson with 49. So Ernest Johnson had 125 yards in offense this week. And even though Birmingham's defense is the one that came in this game as the most best defensive game, it was Orlando's defense this day that really stole the show. They shut down that offense of Birmingham, an offense still without an identity. Will Hill led the game with 6 tackles and just an overall great defensive showing. 5 sacks for the Orlando defense and 1 interception. They put on a show. Elliott Fry hits 3 more field goals. I think he's perfect on the season. I think he's something like 11 for 11 right now. So Orlando wins this one, 31-14. As for Birmingham, Tim Lewis actually pulls Luis Perez out of the game in favor of Washington Husky quarterback Keith Price. He goes 18 for 29, 234 yards, 62.1 completion percentage, 1 touchdown pass, no interceptions. But his ability to buy time and move around the pocket did make a big difference for this team. This team still has no offensive identity, even with Keith Price in there, and I wonder if he'll start this week. We'll find out later in the week. Again, the rushing attack for Birmingham just not there. Very inconsistent. Only 21 yards rushing for Trent Richardson. He was the leader with another touchdown round. Keith Price, the quarterback, had 15 yards rushing also. Rex Saxton was the lead receiver with 75 yards on 3 catches. Beniquez Brown, 8 more tackles. He's been a beast this year. No sacks on Garrett Gilbert. And this so-called iron defense gave up well over 100 yards rushing for the 2nd week in a row. Looks like the Birmingham defense is not as good as we think, and the Orlando offense is as good as we thought. They play in hot weather, cold weather, rain, any type. They can do it all. Orlando dominated time of possession by 10 minutes, 35-25. And the rushing attack was 182-49 in favor of Orlando. Orlando goes on to win this 31-14. They are 5-0. Birmingham is now 3-2. Orlando is home next week to Arizona, which should be a fun offensive game. And Birmingham has a tough game on the West Coast and San Diego. Now, for the second game of the day, the primetime game. Salt Lake City and San Diego. And let me tell you something, this was the game of the week. And you can argue one of the most exciting game of the year. Put us up there with the second week game between San Antonio and Orlando. Mike Bercovici starts at quarterback for the injured Philip Nelson, and he did way better than I expected. I thought Mike Martz would go to run offense more. I should know better. Mike Martz likes to throw the ball. He plays his offense no matter what. And Berkovici came through, 22 of 43. Completion percentage to over 50%, but he had 304 yards passing. One interception, one touchdown pass, a big catch throwing it at the end of the game to get them the winning field goal. Not much of a rushing attack at all. They only had 31 yards, pathetic, on their rushing attack. They're going to have to do better than that. Dantes Ford, again, was their lead receiver with 94 yards. Marcus Barr had 65. Nelson Spruce, I think one of the better tight ends. He had 4 catches for 47 yards. On defense, they sacked Josh Woodrum 3 times. They had 3 interceptions on Woodrum. One of them for a pick 6. They also had a fumble 6. Donnie Hagman kicks 3 more field goals and missed another one early in the game, which almost cost them. And despite Mike Martz's terrible clock management at the end of the game, almost cost San Diego this game again. He got away with it this week. Didn't get rid of it last week. He has to manage that clock better if he wants to be a coach in the NFL. And as for Salt Lake, as far as yards go, Josh Woodrum was awesome. 380 yards, 65 completion percentage, 1 touchdown pass, but threw 3 big interceptions. Very big interceptions. And San Diego ended up getting like 18 points off turnovers on them. The rushing attack for Salt Lake wasn't quite there. Joel Bong-Young had 36 yards on 11 carries. He was the high rusher of the day. Demonte Pearson-L had 130 yards on 8 receptions. He is by far their best receiver. And really, I think really the only receiver. Nick Truzier, the tight end, had 6 catches for 71 yards. Carter Schultz, a defensive beast, had 1 more sack, 5 tackles. Gianni Pohl had 6 tackles. For the Stallions, they got to Berkovici twice, but Berkovici held on to the ball this game. And my goodness, what a game. What a game this was. Again, Josh Woodrum, 3 total picks was the story of 18 points off those turnovers. You cannot do that. And we had our first buzzer beater for the year. Donnie Hagman kicks the game-winning field goal from 44 yards away to win it, and San Diego wins this game 27-25. Over Salt Lake. San Diego is 3-2. They're tied for first with San Antonio. Salt Lake goes to 1-4. San Diego has a tough game home this week, the Sunday night game against Birmingham. And Salt Lake comes home to play 1-4 Memphis. That will be on the Bleacher Report on Saturday afternoon. Now to the third game of the weekend. Memphis at Atlanta, the battle of the 1-3s. Call this the Aaron Murray offense. This is exactly what this is. As far as I'm concerned, Atlanta still has no identity on offense. They don't know if they're a passing team or a running team, but when Aaron Murray's in the game, he makes things happen like his old days in Georgia. 27 of 43 for 306 yards, 1 touchdown pass, 63 completion percentage. Terrion Foster, the leading rusher, with 83 yards. Brandon Ratcliffe with 31. The Legends would rush for 130 yards in the game. They had well over 400 yards total offense. They dominated statistically against Memphis. It wasn't even close. Shantavius Jones, 5 catches for 89 yards. Bug Howard, 3 catches for 59 yards. But a lot of these guys are still dropping a lot of passes on the Legends. They have to improve on that. And we're seeing way too many balls go off receivers' hands and being picked off. They did sack Zach Mettenberger 3 times. They picked him off for a big interception in the game, which led to that game-winning drive. Young Ho Koo is perfect on the season. I think he's something like 12 for 12. He's got a future in the NFL, it seems like. 3 field goals, including the game winner. Memphis, very, very disappointing defensive effort. I thought they matched up well against this Atlanta offense, but it wasn't to be. Zach Mettenberger, not a great game, not a bad game. 9 of 17 for 181 yards. No touchdowns, but that terrible interception at the end of the game, which led to the game-winning drive for Atlanta. I had the rushing attack for Memphis was non-existent, only 59 yards for the day. 181 yards altogether receiving. Sherman Batty out of the backfield had 56 yards. Zach Stacy had 45 yards. Those were your 2 leading receivers. Your man out of the backfield. Drew Jackson, 9 tackles on the day. They did get to Aaron Murray 4 times. Corey Vereen had 2 of those sacks. And now Atlanta is now all of a sudden 2-3. Memphis goes to 1-4. And up next for Memphis, they go on the road to Salt Lake in this afternoon game. Atlanta will be home to face the tough San Antonio Commanders. Now our final game of the day. I thought this was going to be a blowout. I thought San Antonio would win, and they did. I was 3-1 for on my picks this week, and the only one I got wrong was Atlanta beating Memphis. I thought the road teams would go 3-1. They ended up going 2-2. Let's start with San Antonio. Logan Woodside had a good game, 21 of 27, 78% completion percentage, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he did throw a bad interception in the red zone, and he fumbled another snap in the red zone. When you're playing teams like this in Orlando, you cannot give these teams chances to score. And despite Logan Woodside's good game, those 2 mistakes almost cost them. Kenny Farrell, only 25 yards on the ground, but rushing is not an issue when you can throw the ball like Logan Woodside was doing. Mikhail McKay, 91 yards receiving. Alonzo Moore, 54 yards. Marcus Ayers, 50 yards. They have probably the best 3 receivers on the field. Not the best receiver, but altogether, these guys can catch the ball out of the backfield or on the receiving line. They did sack John Wolford 3 times. Jaron Elliott getting 3 of them. Joel Lennon, Duke Thomas, Curtis Drummond each had 4 tackles. Despite the great pass rush San Antonio has, they're pretty weak in the secondary. If they don't get to that quarterback, you can't throw the ball on this team like Arizona did in the second half, like Orlando did in week 2. Rasheed Ross, 106 yards receiving this week. Tim Cook was the lead rusher of the game, only 33 yards. The running games are up and down in this league. John Wolford, 19 of 33, 246 yards, 2 touchdown passes in the second half, but 3 absolutely terrible picks in the game. One of them was a pick 6 at the beginning of the game, which got started for Orlando. The Darian Smith, I believe, was the one that got the pick 6, 56 yards. Logan Woodside hit Mikhail McKay, and all of a sudden they were up 14-0. It was 26-0 at the end of the first half. And like I said, Logan Woodside's fumble snap, which gave Arizona Bowl, almost cost them. It almost wasn't enough despite being up 26-0. And when you're down there, you get whatever points you can because you just never know. Rick Neuheisel, if you saw the mic'd up, said, "Don't quit, guys. Keep fighting, keep fighting." And he almost did. San Antonio did win this game 29-25. I thought they would win. I thought they would win by more. I'm not very impressed with this Arizona defense. I am not. John Wolford took things on his shoulders too much, and those 3 picks killed him. Arizona is now 2-3 after starting the season 2-0. San Antonio improves to 3-2. They're tied with San Diego for first. San Antonio is on the road again for their 4th and final game of this ridiculous road trip. They're in Atlanta on Saturday afternoon, and Arizona has a brutal game against Orlando at Spectrum Stadium on Saturday. So it doesn't get any easier for anyone in this league. And those are your highlights for this week. Let me know what you think. We'll talk to you later on in the week about what I think about week 5.